like everybody's mostly coordinated so far. So I'm just going to be monitoring the panel just to make sure that like everything goes smoothly. You guys, I'm going to ask our awesome speakers over here just some like icebreaker questions that you guys probably like want to ask anyway, and then we'll leave it to you guys to ask questions. Try to avoid questions like how do I get a job in the game industry and general stuff. Like try to be a little bit more specific. All our speakers have different like talents, so like targeted questions. Also, and you guys can ask each other questions or go on tangents. Or
oh boy,
do whatever.
There's a whiteboard. Let's get some dot products in here.
So that's my perfect. Okay, cool. So
make sure your question is a question. Okay, fun fact.
Okay, so I'll just let you guys go down and introduce yourselves real quick.
All right, my name is Tim Ford. I'm a lead gameplay programmer on Overwatch at Blizzard Entertainment. I've been in that role since Overwatch started. Before that, I was on don't ask about titles. Before that, I was on Medal of Honor back at EA, and then before that, I made hockey games at Treyarch. Treyarch made hockey games. I think you sold a copy to each of the team members and my mom.
I'm Rachelle Davis. Hi, I'm also from Blizzard Entertainment. I started at Blizzard the other way. I started as an intern a long time ago, like 7 years ago.
Don't feel old.
That was my dig. That was my dig right there. Thanks for catching it. I interned, and then they couldn't get rid of me because I'm kind of like a leech, and I just stayed. I stayed on Hearthstone, which was unannounced when I started, and I saw it through Ship, and I was on Hearthstone for 5.5 years. It's very appropriate because Team 5 and 5.5, and I felt very smart when I decided I was going to stop doing Hearthstone after that long of a time. I'm now on incubation at Blizzard. Don't ask me about incubation at Blizzard. I'm still a software engineer though, so ask me about that stuff. And then before all of that, when I was in school, I actually did not know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So you guys are all a leg up on that track. But if you have any questions about how do you figure out what you want to do, or how do you do something that you've never done before that everybody else seems to have done before, I'm your person. Yeah.
My name's Koray Hagen. I don't work at Blizzard, but I used to. Currently I work at Santa Monica Studio. I've worked on God of War since it was an idea and not software, which has been an interesting ride. Before that, I used to work at a little company called Riot Games on League of Legends. And before they were bought by Tencent, I saw them bought by Tencent. That was interesting. And I was a student here at Cal Poly Pomona, and I probably am not the best person to ask about getting into the game industry because my path was very convoluted.
Very.
Jim knows. But feel free to ask me anything else.
I'm Paul Laska. Kind of bring this full circle. I started at Treyarch back in 2005 on Spider-Man 3. Moved on to a small games company called Savage Entertainment, where we worked on things from Wall-E to Transformers to anything else that we could get a contract on. Left the games industry for a while, came back, and I'm now at Squirrel working on what I can't say.
Seems to be a trend.
But yeah, no, they want to announce it when they have their marketing ready to go. But yes, I have never worked at Blizzard.
Okay, so Paul, you're a generalist programmer, but there's a lot of different programming fields that are all involved in games, and a lot of them are very specialized. So all of us here are programmers. Actually, how many of you are programmers? Okay, everybody. Okay. So what's your advice to all of these young programmers trying to figure out like what their niche is? Like what do they want to actually do?
Okay, so for your niche, I mean, the best thing you can do is try stuff. You know, go in, just find a little project to try something out, and see if that is what you enjoy. If it is, keep exploring it. If it's not, move on. For me, I found I enjoy the map. You know, I enjoy doing a lot of the 3D dot products, cross products, things like that. So I actually specialized in gameplay first. I also enjoy a lot of the technical, down deep in the engine, dealing with multi-threading, dealing with networking, things like that. And so I jump around, and it's much easier to help a team out, especially a small team. If if you've got skills in everything. And so that's why I kind of switched to the generalist role.
So Rachelle, you were an intern at Blizzard, and you talked and you inspired me to apply for Blizzard. That's a big stretch for a lot of people to try and do something like that. They think that they can't. What's your advice or encouragement to everybody to go out of their comfort zone and maybe try to step into big responsibility like that?
So I would say that imposter syndrome, if you haven't heard of this term before, is basically what Kyle's talking about here. I definitely live with that for a lot of different reasons. One of them is that I didn't start coding until I was in college. So how can I possibly do this thing that I've never done before and everybody else seems to have done forever? But it turns out that a lot of people experience imposter syndrome, even people that you wouldn't expect it from. And I also happen to be stubborn, so it works out that when someone tells me you can't do a thing, or when I feel like you can't do a thing, I say, no, screw it, I'm going to do that thing. Not everybody has that, but if you have that kind of obstinacy in you, I would say lean into that, because it turns out that you really can do a lot of the things that maybe people want to tell you you cannot do. That's been true for my whole career. I would also say that if you find people who believe in you and find out what your skill sets are, find out what value you bring. So that may change over time, but if you figure out what's something that I know, ask other people to help you see that, because sometimes you don't know what your value is until you get somebody else's perspective on it, or you think it's something and it turns out everybody values you for something else. Like I said, that changes over time, so keep a pulse on it. But when you come into a situation where you're like, I'm not sure that I belong here, I'm not sure I can do this thing, get people around you to say, this is why we want you here. You're already in groups, you're already in a club, you're already sitting in this room. You probably have people in this room that can say to you, yeah, I really like that you do this. And then you can say, I should do more of that. And I can bring that value to a group that I'm otherwise feeling comfortable in. And that can be a starting place. And then you get more comfortable and you start to be an expert in more than just that thing, or at least moderately skilled in more than just that thing. And you get more comfortable with that feeling of imposter syndrome that may not entirely go away, but you learn to just live with it.
On that note, Tim, you gave a talk to my group over the summer.
Speaking of imposter syndrome?
Yeah, you said you were asked, then the HR people asked you, why do you continue to stay at Blizzard? Why do you like Blizzard so much? And you said, because I have imposter syndrome and everybody's smarter than me.
We didn't plan this, by the way.
No.
I didn't know that.
We did carpool up.
Yeah, this is not
I'm talking about musical theater.
Paraphrasing, you said something along that lines, but what do you mean by that? And maybe you can explain to everybody why it's okay to not know everything and why it's okay to be surrounded by people that are smarter than you that know other things.
Oh, well, yeah, so I think it is delusion to believe that you know everything. And a lot of people don't know that they don't know everything. It's a fun fact.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Phenomenon called Dunning-Kruger effect. There's something that's common among senior developers, which is that they're comfortable saying, I don't know, and saying help, right? A lot of associate and mid-level developers don't know that they're supposed to ask for help. They think if I ask for help, it's a sign of weakness. If they hired me, they must think I know this crap, and I don't know this crap. And it's not on Stack Overflow. I think there's a high degree of humility you have to learn. I think that degree of humility is really, really important. This whole notion of I have an idea of how to solve this problem, but it's just my idea. And there are a bunch of really giant brains with completely different sensibilities than my own. By the way, I said developer, not engineer. Everyone solves problems in game development, right? Everyone solves problems in every career. So having the humility to go, you know what, why don't I just put this out to the crew and say, I'm trying to solve this problem. What do you guys think? And kind of getting out of your own head, tapping into their expertise, particularly if it's expertise in a bunch of different disciplines, almost always yields the best result, and it builds that camaraderie. So there's this weird irony of, you think that you're being a bad teammate by asking for help because you're demonstrating your incompetence. The reality is, you are being a phenomenal teammate by showing vulnerability by asking for help. And that vulnerability is what endears your teammates to you, is that you are basically opening yourself to say, I don't know, but I trust you. And that trust becomes reciprocated, and that actually builds a strong team strength. So imposter syndrome is fine. Just have the humility to say, I don't know, help.
And then Koray, you graduated from Top 5 Pomona, right?
Yes.
It's weird to be back.
Yeah, it's always weird to be back.
Yeah. So you actually had a game development club a long time ago.
Yes.
And so you have a lot of experience with us, specifically because you went to Top 5 Pomona.
Yeah.
In general, how do you think that computer science education could be improved, or they're going to be.
I got the essay
There's
question.
always.
No, actually, it's funny. When I was driving up here, I had a feeling I would be asked this question, so I practiced. I don't remember at all what I practiced, but no. So I actually have an idea how to answer this question. So, when I was a student, I had many criticisms of the CS education. It's easy to think that there's a silver bullet. That's anything in life. But something that I will say, I've been a person that's done a lot of interviews. I've done interviews for people. I've been on the other side, and I can tell you that actually the biggest improvement that I can see to education in general is giving students the opportunity to work on large projects together, but in a fairly autonomous fashion. The grading system, being graded on something, none of that matters when you come to the real world. It's often you're presented with problems that are not Googleable. There's nothing there's no previous experience that's going to show you how to solve your exact problem. And at the end of the day, the thing you have to rely on is really your fundamental knowledge and trying to try things that, may be intuitive, they may not be, and kind of probing to see a problem. And you can only really get that experience in working on a problem that's much larger than you can solve. Working on a problem that takes many different people to kind of put their collective ideas, as Tim was saying, and having the capacity to reason with other people about how to solve something. And so my favorite classes at Cal Poly where, we had 10 weeks to work on one project. And a lot of the things were ill-defined on what to do, other than, we had some end goal and it was up to us to figure it out. And I honestly feel like I learned so much just working with other people, learning their personalities, figuring out what my place was on a team, having that completely undefined and for me to define, that's the most holistic experience you could get because, it's fun. When you leave college and you go join a company, you're gonna be the same person. Just because you work at Blizzard or Santa Monica, you're not suddenly a new person that has all these acquired skills. That's true for every other colleague you have. Often a company's culture and your process is just defined by the people you hire. So you're just gonna hire the same people that are in college, right? So the best advantage you can give yourself before you join a big company is give yourself the experience of working in a company. That is, it's up to you to sell this product. It's up to you to create something. What do you think the process is? I have no idea. Somebody else wrote something on a YouTube video, but does that work for you? Reason about it, right? You're never going to have a problem where, man, I have to write a sorting algorithm, and I have, I have an array of 10 items.
We'll pay you $10 million.
That's not the kind of problems you have. The real problems you have are, hey, your colleague is going to be out for 3 months, and you need to learn a new system. Sorry. Or, hey, this product actually got canceled, and now you have to work on a whole new set of problems. Or, hey, by the way, this guy wants a waterfall in the game. Nobody knows how to do it. How do you think we should do it? Those are the kind of real world problems. So getting exposure to that, that's how you become that.
Thanks, guys. You guys can ask questions now. Raise your hand and I'll call on the ready.
Over here.
That Jim?
Her.
Oh, wait, there you go.
I don't want to say that, but I wanted to ask because I go to UC Riverside and let's just say they won't let me have my major, the major I want, so they won't let me have computer science or anything related to computers. So I wanted to ask how someone would get into programming practice and everything without going into the major, like resources and just like things I should know, stuff like that.
So I was an undergrad at UC San Diego, and I was afraid of computer science, so I chose not to actually be a computer science major. I was a math hyphenated computer science major. Basically, I went through the math department, and I don't know if this is going to apply to you, but basically I chose all of my coursework based on what I wanted to learn, even though technically I was getting a math major. So if there's a chance that you can take classes even without being in the major, that's one way. There's also a whole bunch of online availability for you, and these guys can probably add to it. But you can make your own stuff. You can do open source. You can contribute to projects that are online. If you've never coded before at all, there's also tools for that. There's Scratch is a cool thing. If you want to add in anything
Yeah, sure.
on this.
Download the Unity engine.
Unity is great.
Start working with that. If you're more ambitious, you can look at the Unreal engine. That's available online, all free.
You know, programming isn't it's not a major. It's like a lifetime skill, right? It's I'm learning things every day. I'm just full of doubt and ignorance about programming, believe me. And so, you know, I think part of it is like, it's very important to switch the perspective of like, if I want to be a programmer in the game industry, or I want to be a programmer, period, like that's kind of like a life decision. It's not really much a school decision. So because of that, there's like, as these guys say, there's so many tools available out there. It's like one of the few skills that you can literally start from nothing. You're looking at Notepad, and you can start writing something, and it's there, and you've started, right? So it's.
And if you want a more like tailored, catered experience, there's plenty of online tutorials and YouTube videos, and like figure out maybe what it is that you'd like to try to build. Like maybe one time I was like, I need to learn C#. This is right before I started on Hearthstone. They're like, you're going to program in C#, and I'd never done that before. And I was like, I think I should probably try that. So I went and like installed what I needed on my computer.
It's like C++ with training wheels.
Yeah. But I'd never done it, and I watched some videos, and I read some tutorials, and I gave myself an end goal. I decided I was going to make Tetris. Like, it's been done before. You don't have to make something new to be a programmer.
Yeah.
But I knew what my end goal looked like, and then I was like, cool, I can make Tetris because I know what success looks like, and now I can go just use whatever toolkit I'm trying to figure out, and then I can research, okay, I need to figure out how to draw some stuff on a screen. Where do I go for that? Like, I don't know, just go look it up.
Yeah.
Somebody's done it.
Yeah.
So you can find your own way. I would give yourself a goal if you're looking for like a place to start.
And Rachelle's point, choose a very small goal. Do not choose an MMO. Like choose the smallest thing you possibly can do. You want to do Pong? I don't know if you guys remember Pong, because it's like 20 years before you're all born. But like, do that. Do the stupidest, smallest thing you possibly can, because it's going to be really hard. If you start off doing something that's even remotely daunting, it's going to scare the crap out of you. Also, you can find a friend to do it with you as your lifting partner, so to speak. That's really, really cool. I'll give you some very specific examples. My boss, the technical director of Overwatch, was a lawyer. He was not a computer scientist. He was a lawyer, and his secretary at some point in time realized that he hated being a lawyer, and without his permission, basically filled out a job application to be a producer at Activision, which at the time happened to be like three floors downstairs from his office building. And his secretary said, "Here, you're applying to be a game producer." And he's like, "What? Okay, fine, screw it." And he did it. And fast forward 30 years later, he's the goddamn technical director of Overwatch. So don't worry about the computer science thing. It's cool because it opens doors a little faster, but at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to you putting in the energy and programming games yourself. This is a career you're interested in, and you just got to do it and start small and keep it easy.
And then if you find that you don't feel ready to like jump into a career in it, like for me, I took classes in undergrad and I was like, yeah, I actually do like this computer science thing, but I feel like I need that label on my resume that says I had one of those degrees. You can always make that decision later. I went to grad school and I got a computer science degree. But that was later. Like I did it after I had done all this other stuff where I learned math, and I confirmed I do like this. That was valuable for me to know ahead of time before like actually spending the USC dollars. That I wanted to do that. So
It's never worth it.
he's from UCLA, I guess. So. Yeah.
And as Rachelle mentioned earlier, that stubborn streak, you need to find that. You need to lean into it. Don't ever let anybody tell you can't. Because you can. If you decide that you're going to do it, you will do it. You may not do it with a big company to start with, but you will do it. You will make the games that you want to make, and then eventually somebody's going to recognize your talent, and doors will open at that point. You talk about going to school or going back to school and kind of shifting careers. I went through and got a comp sci degree and had wanted to do games ever since I was little. I'd had teachers telling me, no, you don't want to do that. You want to work on the big games where you make big money. And I bought into it for a while. And it was a big mistake. So what I did was I eventually went back to school. I didn't go spend the USC dollars. I went to a small school called Full Sail. And Tim mentions about starting Pong. We had one class where in a week you make Pong, then you make Space Invaders, then you make Asteroids. You make all of this in the course of a month, and you do these things. Finding people that you can work with. Again, another huge point. At the school, they get offered tons of opportunities. You've got all these people here. They want to work on games. Talk to them. I'm sure that some of them will want to make another game. Why
are you here?
There's plenty of opportunity for you. Just go after it.
I don't know why I was turning around. You guys should wait the
Who are your favorites? That hand was up first.
Sure.
Does the judges agree that hand was up first?
Yeah.
So this is considered the game engineering panel. You made a comment about game engineering versus game design, like game development. So what exactly is game engineering?
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so the Senate one. Okay, the buck stops with you. Like at some point in time, you are writing software. So someone's got to type of software. I think like on Overwatch, the game engineering responsibilities are overwhelmingly C++. We're writing the game simulation, so all the code that powers all the heroes, all the game modes, all the net code, animation, UI, AI. That's kind of in our sphere of game engineering.
So it just means like the programming side.
Programming side, yeah. I should say again, it is large scale interdisciplinary problem solving.
Yeah.
Right, and our responsibility vis-a-vis that is we are providing software solutions to the problems, whereas effects artists is providing visual and art direction, and we build the solutions. And the sound designers also working on the same things, but for your ears, right? Whereas designers kind of making choices about balance and what should be in the game, what shouldn't be in the game, maybe what the fantasy of the game is. Concept art is also kind of meeting them halfway on that front. So everyone's trying to solve the same problem, but from their own sensibility perspective.
And a lot of the engineering now, like most of the software we have at my studio isn't the game. There's so much infra. You would be shocked just the amount of infrastructure that it takes to even start the process of creating a game, as large as Overwatch or anything else, right? And so when I hear the term game engineering, I really am thinking somewhat about what Tim's saying, sort of more the game programmer role, but I'm not a game engineer. I'm more sort of an infrastructure pipeline animation engineer. So I'm not in that space at all. I'm not working on AI. I'm not working on any of the gameplay code. My end customer is other programmers. It's not artists, it's not designers. I don't even consider it the people who are buying the game. Ultimately it is, but really my day-to-day end customer is other engineers. So there's just such a large stack of technology that has to be built nowadays that you can sit anywhere in that and be as distant or as close to the game as possible.
Part of being an engineer too, and this is true of other disciplines as well, part of being an engineer is knowing your customer, which is going to vary by person and by where you are in your organization. Knowing the bigger picture, because you are ultimately making a game that someone's going to consume somewhere. But then that also means being able to understand when you're talking to a person who is your customer or a part of your customer cloud, interpreting what they're actually asking for. So depending on when you're talking to a person or what that person understands and what their space is, the point of this vein of thinking is it's more than just the programming. That is a huge part of it. But it is also being able to communicate. So if I go talk to my game director, and I sit in a very small area and I talk to him every day, and he doesn't talk to me in terms of the C++ that I write. He talks to me in terms of what he wants to see and how the player should feel, and that doesn't translate into what I'm going to program. But I have to somehow map that into, okay, this is what you're asking for. These are the systems that I need you to build, and that's part of the engineering that I do. And I would probably guess that's true of everybody at this table. Yeah, it depends on who you're talking to. If Koray is talking to more programmers, they might have language that's, closer to what he's going to write on the screen, but it comes down to the same thing. What systems are you asking for, and how do I make them for you so that they're going to be flexible enough to do what you're asking them to do?
Part of your job also as an engineer is not just architecting the systems, like what she's talking about, but also knowing your tools. You need to know what's the best tool for the job. Because C++, while it's a great language, may not be the right tool for the job, because you've got a lot of memory management overhead. You might be able to get the same job done with C# in half the time. So if you know your tools, and Tim comes to you and says, I want you to do this, you go, okay, I can do that in 2 weeks, or I can do that in 4 weeks. 2 weeks, I'm going to do it with C#, 4 weeks, I'll do it with C++. What are you looking for? And like Rachelle mentioned.
More bugs, okay.
I have a question from Discord. Based on your experience, what challenges do you think, or engineering challenges do you think the industry will be facing in the future, and like what technology should students start learning now to like prepare for those challenges?
I'm gonna like turn this one on its head, and then these guys can like either back me up or say that's silly. I would say the most valuable technology or skill that you can learn is how to learn. So I would not look at like what is the language, because whatever that is today is not going to be what it is tomorrow. Like I said, when I first started at Hearthstone, I needed to learn C#, and they were hiring me knowing I'd never done it. But I had demonstrated that I could learn, that I could contribute like value without knowing that particular language. That was my skill set, not that I knew C#. And since then I've learned other languages, and since then I've learned other methodologies, and like being able to adjust, accepting that the only constant is change. That's what you have to do. Specifically, like you can make projections for this year, next year, a few years from now, but whatever you say is going to be mildly off, so if you're going to invest in something, invest in learning. Yeah.
There was another question in there, which is you said, what are the big challenges of coming up? I mean, that's a really large question. I think that if I was like to give not a buzzword, but a buzz phrase, it's that the problem is going to be the amount of data. There's so much data that has to go into a game, about games, reasoning about games. Managing that and driving that data around a studio is a massive challenge. I think it's only going to get worse as people are expecting larger and larger experiences, and the fidelity of games continues to go upward and upward. I don't know if it's sustainable, but I mean, that's what people want. That's definitely another question, but yeah, in terms of technologies and what you should be learning right now to reason about future challenges, it's like Rachelle said, honestly, like if you believe you're going to learn some piece of technology that it's going to be the thing that you're going to do, it isn't. There's so many tools for the job, and really the best thing you can do is just give yourself a big toolbox early on.
Exposure.
Yeah, just have a lot of things that you can use to throw at a problem. Sometimes a problem is a mathematical problem. You need that skill set. Sometimes a problem is, man, how do I automate installing the software for people because they're spending, the first week of their job doing it. Sometimes that problem is like, I can't talk to this person because I have no idea what the hell they're saying. So I need to look up a glossary of animation terms. So I know what I'm speaking about when I'm talking to my customer, right? It just really varies. So just, having a wide set of stuff, even if you really want to narrow down, man, it helps. It really helps just in navigating your career and your job.
Question back there.
Hi, okay, so if someone potentially wants to go into like game producing or game director, what we do as engineers, like most importantly, you're like, I wish my game director knew this, I wish my producer knew this, like what is your one thing, so if I can like, maybe like, instead of maybe like learning their lingo, but how I can best understand and communicate with you to get the best product that we want as a team, as an ensemble.
There's kind of two roles. So game director, as in the Blizzard parlance, game director would be like Jeff Kaplan's a game director of Overwatch. So he's in charge of design and vision, and he's accountable to any salt that's generated on the farm. Whereas for production is more about like getting it done on time, on budget, scope reasonably. So I'll kind of answer this quickly. So for game design, game direction, the most important thing I think, feel free to disagree on this one, is that as a game director, you're setting the vision for the game. If that's how your company works. If you're Valve, that's not really how it works. If your company works top down like that, you have a game director who's getting the vision out. You should be able to put every single member of the team in an isolation booth, interview them one at a time, and say, what's the game about? What's the game about? Right? And if they all give you the exact same answer, that's good game direction. That doesn't mean the game's fun. At least they all know what the game is. They all move in the same direction. Right? That's what game direction is. If they give you different answers, that's how Titan happened. For production in general, it's the only Titan thing I'm going to say, maybe. For production in general, what I'm talking about as an engineer, what I'm looking for from a producer is certainly they have a good sense of scoping and of cost and of the process, but really a producer done wrong is someone who thinks that they are a messenger between different departments. So I hate to give an example of producers gone wrong as opposed to producers done well, but it's one of those roles where you only notice it when they're doing it wrong, like AI programming. So being a liaison between different departments means getting those people together in a room to solve problems, and then you as a producer learn how those folks solve problems together, and you got to get a smell for what types of problems are probably going to hit next the next time they do this. Like our producer for Heroes not Heroes of the Storm, but for Hero making in Overwatch he's been doing it for so long that he has a spidey sense for exactly what types of problems are going to come when. And it's hilarious to watch him work, because he knows how to get the big brains to work together. At the same time, he knows, like, oh, we're working on a new hero. The first problem is going to be we haven't added sounds yet. So this hero, like heart disease, sneaks up on you and kills you, right? So and he knows this as a producer, so he knows to put more pressure on the sound designer to just get something in, because that's the first problem we're going to hit on the new hero. All right, so those are my two different answers.
So for the game producer question, I talked to a producer just last week who said 3 really salient things to this question. One is your product is the team. So, I mean, yes, ultimately the team is making a game, but if you think about, I don't know if anybody in here has read Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull. He's the guy who runs Pixar. It's a great book, you should read it. That is basically the mantra of a producer. Like, how do I make sure the team is healthy? Because a healthy team can make any mediocre idea a great idea.
Absolutely.
But a not healthy team can take a great idea and just put it in the trash can really fast. So for producers, that's kind of the end goal. What does the team look like? Are they happy? Are they healthy? And then there's a bunch of stuff, like how do they communicate, blah, blah, blah. In terms of like the day-to-day tactical stuff that a producer does, she gave 2 analogies which I thought were brilliant that kind of you reminded me of. One is, it's like you're playing an RTS with more people.
Yeah.
So like you have commanders and you have like cavalry and you have, your archers and who do I send where and when? And you're kind of watching it at all times and hoping that you can sort of trust this group to go that way and mostly do what they need to do. Oh shit, they're going the wrong way, I don't want to hear. So that's kind of like your bird's eye view. And then another like metaphor for it is playing Oregon Trail. So your job is
Kill as many animals as humanly possible.
your job is not actually to kill the animals or to avoid the disease. Your job is to see it coming, kind of in line with what you were saying. So you're the scout in Oregon Trail. You're looking up ahead and you go, oh look, there's cholera. We don't want to go there. Let's not go towards the cholera. Let's go the other direction. And if you're doing your job well as a producer, you see it coming. You're able to kind of like paint the picture. Hey, you guys, we might want to like think about this problem because it's coming up. And there might be more than one trail you're trekking because you've got multiple RTS units that are moving around. But that's production. For game direction, I love what you said about like taking everybody into a room and do we all agree that we're making the same
I wish
game?
we could do that more often.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of teams don't have the ability to do that, and you can see it in the product that's coming out.
And in the team too, you feel like, I don't think the environment artists are making the same game we are.
Yeah, yes.
We should probably have a talk about
Yes.
that.
Yeah, but they're very different roles, and hopefully in a well-oiled environment, those 2 people, the game director and the game producer, are in sync and like complementing each other. So that's another part of both roles that I would add to it, is like making sure that you understand where your blind spots are so that you have the other people around you filling in.
Yeah. Fun fact, on Overwatch, Kaplan and Chocolate Sunny are our game director and production director. They sit next to each other and talk about Pearl Jam all the time. But that's how simpatico those dudes are. Yeah.
Please. I was going to say, specifically when it comes to wrangling programmers as a producer, I gotta be honest, it's very tough to get the lingo down. Speaking to programmers, we say a lot of funny things, and a lot of it doesn't make sense, even amongst each other. So we're trying to reason about it as we're talking to production as well. But I would say that the most successful producers I have seen on any team that I've been on are producers who stuck with the team long enough to really understand a problem deeply that the team is trying to solve. And often, it's sort of unfair on the producer because not only does it really help to understand the problem deeply, but all of the other tentacles that go out that reach into other areas of the organization. And it's a big responsibility, but I would say that like the best thing you can do as a producer is just, if you're coming onto a new team and you know this team's on fire, this team's doing well, you really want to understand the fundamental nature of what problem they're trying to solve as a group. And if you can find that, it's so much easier to make sure people are directed and focused on that, because very often you can come onto teams that are just wiry, people are not looking at the same thing, and often it's because they have the same problem you do. They don't know what problem they're trying to solve. They don't know what that vision is. And so you have to help them reason about that.
In addition, probably the best description I've ever heard of a producer or somebody in production is they're the person that greases the wheels. If you have two people that are constantly causing friction, one of your best skills is negotiation. You can go between those people and get them to stop that friction and work towards that common goal. Like they've all said, you know, looking down the road, seeing what the goal is, and how do I wrangle the cats and get them there.
Unfortunately, humans have to make games.
Yes.
And the producers, and they come with a lot of problems, and the producers really get the blunt trauma of that in many ways.
So I noticed you have your Moira shirt on.
It's a free club.
Is it out there?
No, we weren't.
But what I want to ask is, like, you're putting a new character into the game. You've got a defined environment, you've got a defined set of rules for other characters. What steps do you have to go through to get something new into the game?
First, you get a producer.
Yeah, so the impetus for any given hero, so this is speaking specifically of Overwatch heroes, I assume, but this is probably true of features in general, so I just wanted to give it a broader application for everyone in the room. For us, the kernel of any hero can start from design, because there's some cool mechanic they want to dig out, maybe there's some balance change they want to really throw, or there's like a certain meta that's evolved they want to just break, or it comes from concept. So our canonical example there is like Winston, who is a gorilla, a sentient, just smart scientist gorilla from the moon who has a Tesla coil. He started as concept art because the mechanically what I just said doesn't make sense, so naturally it was concept art. We just kind of had to fiction him into this thing. Whereas some things like Fire Ops are our first mechanical hero, where Jeff Goodman, our hero designer, decided, I want to make this dude who shoots rockets and is also a rocket. And then we bring him to like, no, she's a chick. That's way cooler. Yeah, so that came from the mechanic source. So you tend to get them, or maybe there's a story reason too. More was more of a story reason. I think we wanted to get someone really to kind of fill out the rest of Blackwatch so we could do Retribution, fun fact. So we worked on Moira on that front. After that though, it's, okay, team, we have this idea, Goodman might put together a prototype with some of the abilities we want this hero to do. And those can either be based on mechanics, like we need this hero to break up a front line and be anti-barrier, or they could be based entirely on fantasy. Like, no, we have this evil scientist chick who does like a lifesteal and a heal, and she's actually an evil person who's really, really smart, and she's just trying to take advantage of the team in some evil way. So different direction kind of has different flavors to it. After that, it's kind of everyone ideates and comes up with good code and good animations and good effects and sounds to make it feel cool. And the story writers and the concept artists come up with cool ideas for skins that either celebrate the hero in the fantasy or they tell a bit more of that character story. And then we just do that for months and months and months.
That part is really important. The
Yeah,
iteration part, like
yeah.
that's actually where you spend most of your time with a new thing.
At first it was the first 2 weeks, and then the other 5 months is, so the way we work on Overwatch is we get the prototype out and we play as a group. And we usually take what we call a feature team, which is a selection of developers, a couple engineers, artists, animators, effects, sound, design, producer, QA. And we basically create them as an atomic unit that requires no outside support. They can make that hero without anyone else's help. And they're focused on that hero and that hero alone. So basically a mini game dev team. And they have autonomy. Like they're allowed to go whatever direction they want. They should touch base with the leads from time to time. Me as a technical lead to make sure they're not going to tank performance or something. Right? And maybe Kaplan as the design lead just to make sure that they're not going off into the weeds somewhere. But for the most part, they're an autonomous unit making that hero. And they will iterate and play every single day that hero from prototype to ship over the course of several months. And if for some reason they don't want to play that hero, you should probably just delete that hero and start again. If you don't want to play it, then what the hell are you doing? It's obviously not fun. That's how heroes born.
Kind of a small little tidbit, so I don't know about you, Tim, but it's from experience I can tell you that like as a programmer and like character technology, like characters are so expensive to make. Just there's such an involved process. Even for our game when we were looking at the cast of enemies that you would be able to create, making a truly unique character is a very big deal. Requires a lot of people, and I would say just like selfishly as a programmer, if you're interested in going into an area that's not just graphics programming or something generic that lots of people are interested in, character technology, character
That pipeline, yeah.
pipeline, that's such a not only a fundamental field, but it's going to be something that will be explored very deeply as time goes on to make really characters that really empower the game a lot, and that have high fidelity, high interaction. It's a really interesting area just as an engineer to play in and really learn a lot of things.
So backhand.
So you guys talked about how you make new characters and then the ones that succeed, you try and put them in the game. So how do you guys know when something's not working, when you should cut it? Like how much do you scrap out of all the ideas? Like what do you know won't work?
Yeah, so for Overwatch, I feel like it falls into two camps. Either it clicks right away, so like a reset was like that, and Moira was like that, or it doesn't click and takes forever, which is like Sombra and Genji. Holy shit! We made like 8 Genjis and like 12 masters. Like we just kept going. So yeah, you know when it's not working, and you try to kind of reevaluate at your core. Your core is the fantasy. So you kind of start with the core and say, is the fantasy we put out there the right one? So Sombra was a big challenge there because we didn't know how to make this hacker fantasy work in the game. Whereas Genji was easier. Like he's a ninja, just not a ninja that murders people in 2 shots. Let's look at it again and again and again, right? So as long as you have that kernel, that fantasy there, that really grounds that hero. It increases the odds that that hero is going to survive. We've ideated on heroes that have never seen the light of day, and they may never see the light of day. We probably, what winds up happening is we might come up with a prototype for a hero that it's not quite clicking, but there's some mechanics that are really cool. So we harvest those mechanics and wind up on other heroes. And then that hero either hibernates and comes back later, or we realize that it was kind of done and it was the movie.
I would say like at Blizzard, we have the saying, find the fun. And we do this in the very, very early stages of a project. I mean, that's what incubation is all about, so that's what I'm doing every day, is trying to find the fun. But this happens throughout the process of the game, even when it's live. So for my journey on Hearthstone, for instance, when I first joined the team, it was way back before we even were using Unity as a client. It was not even called Hearthstone. I couldn't even talk about what I was doing with people at home. And you're in this small pot of people, there were a dozen of us that were looking at it every day, and we all thought it was fun or we wouldn't have been working on it, but like sometimes you need the outside perspective. So Dave Kozak actually is the missions design lead on Hearthstone now, and he talks about this with Dungeon Run for a recent expansion that happened. And there's circles of this. So you start with the people who are working on it, and they're looking at it, and hopefully they're continuing to have fun playing with it. And that's people of all disciplines, engineers, designers, artists, QA, production, the whole gamut. And then at some point you need to have a wider scope. And you want to choose that point carefully when you have something that's worthwhile to look at, because you only get a first impression once. But when you think you have something that's worth showing, you kind of gut check. Is this actually fun, or are we just having fun because we're too close to the problem and we're like enjoying playing with it? For Hearthstone, when I first joined, that was something we called Fire and Ice. Fire and Ice being like a fiery mage and an icy mage. That was all you could play, those 2 decks. And we had a Flash prototype that we had converted sort of into this like thing that other people could also play with just those 2 decks. And then we had a gut check, like with the rest of the company. A small group that got to see it, and so they said, yeah, that's continuing to be fun. I think you should look at other problems. You've solved the fun of this problem. You can actually sling cards back and forth in a match, and then now we know that's good. So what else is this game going to be? And it was about finding what that first problem was. What was the fun there? The fun of Hearthstone, fundamentally, is when you're playing in a match with other people and playing cards. Don't do the rest of it. Don't make the collection manager. Don't build the arena. Don't put in tavern brawls. Like all of that came later because we needed to find the core fun. And then you can layer on top of it, and you can layer the people on top of it. So after that, that was our like Fire and Ice build. Alpha came later. Alpha was like the rest of the company could see it. And then beta came later. That was when people outside the company could see it. So choosing strategically your points at which people get to try it out can also help too, to make sure it's still fun. And if at any point it's not, try to get salient feedback as to why. Like we talk about, we look at the forums and the Salt and whatever, and we actually do read those things, like I do. And it's not because we like to be berated all day long, but it's because some of those comments are actually really great criticisms and they tell us why it's not fun. So if you say, yeah, this fucking sucks, that's not super useful, but if you can be a critical person that can say, I didn't have fun doing X, like that is super useful. So don't be turned off by criticism, I guess, is another thing. Be really open to it. When people have things to say about your game that you're making or whatever you're making that are not great, if they're specific, it usually means there's something about it that they do like, and this other thing is getting in their way. So solve that other thing. And then ask again, is it better? Is it worse? Read the forums, and is it generally feeling better today than yesterday? It's still gonna be salty, but is it better? Then maybe you're going in the right direction.
I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to ask interesting questions that people send me. So, Koray, you spent like how many years working on God?
4 years.
4 years working on God. And Rachelle, you grew up basically with Hearthstone. And Tim, you were working on Overwatch before it was Overwatch. It was Titan. So you guys,
It wasn't Overwatch that.
yeah.
Be very clear.
Yeah.
But some other game.
You worked on projects for a very like long term, and then in contrast to that, you, Paul, Blind Squirrel is like for contract companies, so I don't think you've worked on a project for like 2 years straight.
I've worked on like Spidey 3 for about 2 years when I was at Treyarch, but most of my work has been jumping from project to project very quickly.
So what are some of the unique challenges to working on a project for a long term, and then like jumping from project to project or doing shorter term projects? What are the differences between those two?
I can say one thing that can become a big problem is tunnel vision on problems. You know, if you look at a problem, if you're working on a particular aspect of a game for a long time, it can be very easy to spend so much time on it that you may actually begin to lose sight of what it is you're trying to accomplish a little bit with any particular thing that you're working on. A good example that I can give is one of the things that I worked on a long time for God of War was iteration time for artists. So, you know, they want to change stuff, they want to get things in the game as quickly as possible, right? And it's a very complex problem, and I won't go into it, but one of the things that I can say is that I worked on this problem for about like 3 years, like just getting people to have a good workflow, right? And at some point, like, there was so much technology that had been built up to service this need to actually get people working quickly and getting things in the game. You know, at the end of it, we kind of looked at it and we said, what did we just build? Like, look at this, right? Like, some parts of this are just clearly over-engineered. Like, you know, we simplify this here, simplify this here, but this is all hindsight, right? And one of the benefits of like having a limited time box working on things is often you have to, the constraint of time can be very valuable because it can really allow you to have like very impactful, very tight decision making that can often actually maybe lead to a better experience. If you have like endless years to work on a problem, you know, coders are it's so much easier to write code than read code, and programmers are very good at writing lots of code that will do a whole lot of nothing, you know, in the long run. And so just being aware of that can help, but yeah, that's a big problem of working on things for a long time.
Excuse me, one of the things that I found moving from project to project, not so much, well, maybe not a problem, but a challenge, is you mentioned a limited amount of time. Well, that also limits the amount of knowledge that you get in the system. Getting to dive deep is something you don't get to do often. There was one engine that I jumped into where it became obvious after about a week or two that other people had jumped into this engine not knowing what they had available to them as far as the tools. And they had layered 3 different memory managers, one on top of the other.
Oh, no.
So this was a PSP game, and there you've got 32 megabytes. The operating system takes 8, the video memory takes another 4. So you got 20 megabytes. The executable size was 16 megabytes. And so it's like, well, let's get rid of a couple of these layers and, you know, some of this other stuff that we find. And, oh my God, we got it down to 12 meg. What else can we get out of this thing? Because the more that you can get out of that, the more that you can add back into the game with the levels, just the visuals, the models and whatnot.
I'd say that for a long-term project, one of the things I learned maybe the hard way on Hearthstone is that code never dies, kind of like Heroes.
100% true.
Yeah, so
100%
if you
true.
put in, I again learned this the hard way, if you put in a comment anywhere, this will never happen, you are wrong. And if you think that this particular code will come back and you put like $fix me, you won't. So
Remove after BlizzCon demo.
yes, no, there's still, I mean, I haven't looked at the code for a little bit, but when I left Hearthstone, that was definitely still in there from like the first time we announced it. Yeah, so it doesn't ever go away. So knowing that up front, like definitely for me now, I'm thinking a lot more long term because Blizzard games do tend to stick around for a long time. And we want them to, we want to build them that way, but like trying to enter, it's this weird balance because you don't want to over-engineer. You don't want to build something that's not necessary, which means that you're going to make choices now that aren't going to make sense later. Later you're going to have to add in tavern crawls. Later you're going to want to put in some other feature that nobody had thought we were actually going to build this. And whatever decisions you made before, you probably made them for before, and that wasn't now. So it's going to, there's a lot of refactoring, there's a lot of throwing away, there is no like blessed code that is going to always stay there. Stuff just goes out the window.
Yeah.
And that's just something you have to embrace. So for how to keep yourself invested, it's about like, what fun problems am I solving today? Because you are on a project for 2, 3, 4, 5 more years. I used to say like, I go to school and I get to go to a new school between 2 to 5 years. So it gets boring after 2, if you don't think of something new, you have to frame it. So maybe the problems you're solving today happen to be learning a new language. Maybe the problems you're solving today is how do I refactor this code so that it's better than it was last time. Maybe it's how do I talk to that other engineer who just joined my team and we just butt heads all the time. So it doesn't always have to be technical, like what keeps you on a team for that long, but you do have to think of that as well. So yeah, thinking about long term without over-engineering and finding new things to find fun for yourself every day is really important.
Also, if you're growing as an engineer, you should look at code that you wrote years ago and think to yourself, who's the fucking idiot who wrote this shit?
I've done that.
And you should have, there's no greater pleasure than deleting that code.
Yes.
Oh, deleting code is just,
It is so
That's the highlight.
exquisite. It's great. So if you're gonna work, this is less about games that take a long time to make. It's probably more applicable to games that survive for long periods of time. But a good way to get ahead of the technical debt is to set apart time to delete and refactor old systems.
yes.
And for me, as a lead, it's kind of nice. I tend not to put myself in what I call critical path. I don't work. Retribution I did a little bit, I did too much. But I tend not to work on features that are going to be player-facing soon because there are a lot of things that are going to take my attention away. So I tend to give myself the assignments of deleting the code. And it's really selfish of me because every one of my guys should have the pleasure of looking at code they wrote and going, that shit's horrible. You delete and then so, yeah, delete your code, it's great.
Probably have time for one more question.
That hand was
Yes.
Okay, so do you ever go into situations where you're just coding, something becomes really difficult or it just becomes monotonous, and eventually you reach a point where you're just like, fuck this, and then like just stop? And if so, how do you overcome that like obstacle?
That's an easy one. If it needs to get done, it'll be overcome when they fire you from your job. So I'll go back to the first answer, which is ask for help. Do a sanity check. Go, I need an adult. Ask a friend, like, hey, I am so deep in this nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
Let me talk through it, and then invariably you'll figure out something.
and offering help too. Like, I mean, there's some, you have to learn to understand how to ride the wave of swear words. So like, I'll be sitting at my desk, what the fuck is going on? And then I'll hear somebody from behind me, do you want some help? No, I'm good. And then like, if the swearing gets too much, they're like, hey, you want to like tell me what you're working on? Yes, I do. Yes. And sometimes somebody else has to ask me, but sometimes I can be like, I need help. Somebody come over. Somebody in the room probably has done it before, so you can ask. If somebody hasn't, they might know someone who's done it before. You get frustrated. That's part of, but then it's even more satisfying when you solve the goddamn problem that frustrates you, right? So if you can figure out what your balance point is, some people actually like get motivated by, wow, this is so frustrating, I want to fucking solve it. And some people are like, this is frustrating and I'm checked out. So like, figure out where you are with the problem. If you stay checked out for too long, it turns out the code won't write itself, so you do need to figure out how to bridge back to solving the problem you're trying to solve. But ask for help, offer help, and figure out when you need a friend.
Rubber ducking your problem sometimes is key to solving a problem. You'll sit there and you'll go, okay, this is my problem. This is why I can't seem to solve this. And they're looking at you going, yeah, okay, and they're waiting because they have the answer. And about halfway through your explanation, they see the light go on in your eyes, and you're like, oh, I got it. And for the next 2 hours, you're just sitting there coding straight, and you've solved your problem.
Yeah.
So just explain it to somebody sometimes, and that will work you through your problem.
I was saying this before, but we call that the tree.
Okay.
You can go talk to a tree. Usually it's better if the tree has a face and will like smile at you, but like, I have offered to be a tree. I've literally gone up to Cobra's desk and said, do you need a tree right now? And he goes, yeah. And I just stand there and I go, and then he goes, thanks. And I'm like, sweet, I was over my desk.
You know, there's that old saying that like if you teach somebody a topic, like you're gonna learn it even better, right? It's totally true with like being struggling with any issue that you may have. Like you'll find often just by the act of trying to explain what the actual issue is, you come to like a bit of clairvoyance, you know, because having to explain it to somebody, it forces you to bring a clarity to it. And often oftentimes people get stuck, or at least I get stuck, is because I don't have all the pieces of the problem, and there are gaps in my knowledge. And it's funny like it's funny like the programmer's mind, or anybody, like the human mind, like it's funny like how you can fill in those gaps by inference. So just surrounding that thing that you don't know by all this other knowledge, and then it's like, oh, well, this can only lead to one conclusion, right? What this must be. Right? So,
also, the shower thoughts, like,
Yeah.
everybody's had that moment of like, oh my god, like it doesn't have to be a technical thing, but you're in the shower and you're like, I've just solved whatever this thing has been. So the equivalent at work, I mean, maybe you take a shower at work, but maybe not. You can go for a walk.
Yeah.
Like get up out of your chair, change your environment. If these other tools aren't working, or if you haven't tried them yet and you still want to solve this on your own or whatever, like
How
just
many of you
get
guys
up.
have solved a big problem while driving out of the parking lot?
Oh my
Yep.
god. So
End of
many
the day,
times.
like, I got it! I'm not going back to work, but I got it. Yeah, so what you're talking about is something we talked about, this notion of, it's really easy to get your head stuck in the solution, right? And so, which is, here's a problem, and here's the solution that's not solving the problem, it's somewhere over here, and you get really stuck in this headspace. So when you take that moment to explain it to somebody else, you're kind of putting your head back in the problem. And it's really cool, because it gives you that kind of top level view to go, oh, yeah, I'm trying to pull down something really bad. You just stop and do this.
Great. That's all the time we have, unfortunately. Did you guys want to answer any more questions? You have to be unanimous.
We're going to be on the road till noon 20, so.
Yeah, we have time.
One bonus question.
Okay.
We've congregated on that side. Let's choose something.
Yeah. Oh, this guy.
So, like, for one of my projects, it's like really idea-based, and I want to integrate like artificial intelligence multiplayer. So when you're like making a game like with Blizzard or whatnot, when do you start development into like these systems, and like even like with the prototypes as well?
So I'll take a step back there. I just said something about being your head stuck in the solution. Artificial intelligence and networking are solutions. What's the problem you're trying to solve? Like, what's the game you're making?
It's starting out with like a top-down shooter that wants to integrate like for a multiplayer aspect of like an arena base. But at the same time, you want to integrate artificial intelligence as some sort of trainer to train the player before it enters the arena.
So I would suggest this to you. This is something we've been doing even on my team now. This is very relevant to my everyday. Figure out what your user story is. Figure out what it is, like what is the use case, and start really small. Like, and put it with a name on the label of who needs to be able to do it. So let's say you have an artist on your team named, Joe. Joe needs to be able to see his figure on the screen. That's a story. There's a whole bunch of solutions that go into that story. And then eventually, your networking programmer who's working with you on this, Rebecca, needs to be able to make sure that she's doing her thing right. And so, okay, Rebecca needs to see 2 characters on the screen that logged in from different places. And then now you're talking about a whole bunch of things that go into that, but try to figure out, define what it is that like the problems are, because then you know when they're solved. Like you can see so-and-so did this thing. And great, we're done.
Sorry. It goes back to what Tim had said at the very beginning. Keep your scope small. When you define your problems, like what Rachelle's talking about, you're breaking your larger problem down into smaller problems, making them solvable, and then you slowly add on the other small problems or challenges as you get there, and then you get the whole picture when you get towards the end. And then your game is tight. You've not wasted a lot of effort doing these grand design schemes that end up getting thrown away ultimately. And if you need to, go back, refactor.
And don't spend a lot of time on ideation. Like if you're doing a game jam, ideation's like the first hour. After that, you better start typing. Like get something in there. Even if it's like if you're saying I'm gonna do a multiplayer game, and if it's game jam, hopefully it's like couch and co-op, not internet. Get 2 characters and go what you do in the game pad is just moving on the screen, top-down shooter. All you do is just move. Cool. But start typing that. That's a simple problem. But yeah, don't get an ideation phase for too long. I think the ideation phase for Overwatch is 2 weeks. Wow. And they started typing code. Actually deleting a lot of typing code.
And it was really satisfying.
Summer of 2013, I deleted most of my code ever. It was great.
Well, ideation was optimized for getting towards deletion. That's what you wanted to get to. We parallelized.
All right. Well, thank you guys.